Well, I somehow managed to avoid getting COVID for 2 whole years and then test positive 2 days before SynBioBeta. So, well, I feel totally fine. So it mostly bums me out because I deeply miss seeing all of you. Our community in synthetic biology matters a lot. I've known many of the folks in this room for 10 years and some for 20 years now. And we need each other's support. And it's always felt to me that we're not really competitive among this group. It's more that there's a common goal of unlocking the power of biology and sharing our passion about that with the world. So it's really tough not being there with you all today. The picture here is from Ginkgo Ferment, our annual meeting in October at Ginkgo, and I got to see some of you there in person, which was great. We'll be doing it again next October 13th, so save the date for that. Hopefully that'll be the sort of next big in-person gathering after this. You're all invited. So even though I'm not here in person, we have a small army of folks at SynBioBeta from Ginkgo, so look out for these faces. And in part, we have so many people there because we actually opened a lab and office in Emeryville last year. So if you want to ever drop by, also, please don't hesitate to ping us if you're on the West Coast. We're also having 2 events tonight at 6 o'clock at Original Pattern Brewing in Oakland, and Thursday at 6 o'clock at the Alemannic Beer Company in Alameda. So check those out. You want to get the important stuff out of the way first, the beer hours. And also we'll have a booth, so come by anytime during the conference. There'll be someone there. One of the things that I love about SynBioBeta is that it gets new people exposed to synthetic biology for the first time. So some of you who are here today are brand new to the field, not like me, old grizzled. And for the new folks, I think it's really good timing. Synthetic biology, as far as I'm concerned, is in the strongest position that I've seen it in since I got involved more than 20 years ago. So a couple examples. Right. So synthetic biology was on the cover of The Economist. This is from sort of end of 2019. There was a whole set of articles that are really worth checking out. President Trump held a bioeconomy summit at the White House. Also around that same time, this mirrored similar events for AI and quantum computing. And I think we're seeing that in the government. You're seeing synthetic biology being listed next to AI and quantum as emerging technologies of strategic relevance for the government. We took Ginkgo public in October, trading as DNA, our ticker. We raised $1.5 billion in that transaction, which we're going to use to expand our platform for all of you. But most importantly, we put a 30-foot T-Rex on the outside of the New York Stock Exchange. And so if that's not waving a flag for SynBio, I don't know what is. It was also really cool to see President Obama specifically called out synthetic biology by name as a technology needed for the response to climate. And we've also seen a lot of energy recently from this trend to onshore critical reagents and supply chains here in the US. And really, frankly, in any country, you're seeing this desire for onshoring. And so I think synthetic biology to manufacture these things is going to be a critical technology. So that's a real wind in our sails for the industry. Okay. So why is there all that interest now? What's going on? And so the 3 things I wanted to touch on is first, that the range of applications being pursued by the folks in this room is insanely broad. Second, products are starting to go to market from synthetic biology. So things that were sort of dreams 5 or 10 years ago are starting to become reality today, which is leading to follow-on demand for both investors and customers. And then platform technologies underneath it all are making it so that these applications are coming out faster. Okay, so let me touch on the first one, the sort of range of applications. So sort of unsurprisingly, some of the wildest applications of synthetic biology come from startups, right? Like many of you in this room. Applications from hair care, mushroom-based leathers, new types of foods, faster carbon fixing trees from companies like Living Carbon, Biomason's work on carbon neutral concrete. So in general, as like a bio nerd that thinks we should grow everything, seeing this breadth is very exciting for me. But it's a real strength for the entire industry of synthetic biology. So there was a time, I'm thinking kind of like mid 2000s biofuel era, where in my opinion, the technology of synthetic biology was too concentrated in one market. And so when oil prices went up and the bottom fell out of the fuels market, that was not just it for fuels-based applications. That was it for the entire technology stack in synthetic biology at the time. I think based on what we've been seeing across the industry, that we are now enough diversified as a sector in synthetic biology that we're not subject to that risk anymore. If one of these areas, a certain market ends up not panning out, that's okay, right? There'll be enough demand across the rest to continue to drive the core progress of the technology. So many of you here are likely in the audience thinking of launching a new application in some crazy new market. You should do it. The folks that move first into an application area are often the ones that end up getting the most traction. We at Ginkgo have worked with a lot of big companies over the years, large partnerships with Bayer, Roche, Biogen, Aldevron. We just announced a partnership yesterday with Elanco, or a spin out. That's a big company in animal health industry. But what I really love getting on the platform are startups. And so here's a picture with a whole bunch of the startups that have gotten on the platform at Ginkgo. Many of these have just been in the last year. In fact, Persephone was just announced this morning. So Stephanie Culler and her team have been just doing amazing work in microbial therapeutics. And so we're super excited to get them on the platform. And if that's an app area you're interested in, you should definitely talk with Stephanie. And perhaps it's obvious from the number of new deals we're doing with startups, but we've made our deals and pricing more startup friendly in the last year. So you should go to Ina's talk tomorrow at 1:30 to learn more about this, or reach out to me, I'm Jason at Ginkgo Bioworks, or anyone at Ginkgo to learn more about how we're doing this. And look, the reason we understand startups is because we've been there, right? We were a startup. So we bootstrapped Ginkgo without taking any venture capital for the first 6 years. There's a few fun pictures here. So we have that thing on the top left, that's a sink being wheeled out of MIT that was being thrown away. Top right was some lab space we first looked at for renting Ginkgo that was in some sort of fish distribution facility. Lower left is me being quite proud of a bunch of junk lab equipment, our materials that we got on eBay, assembling our stuff for the first lab. And in the middle, though, I quite like is my co-founder Barry pushing a old freezer out of a basement of an old lady's house in Southie that we had bought on Craigslist, right? So let's just say that this use of time in Austin, who you can see down the right, he's at SynBioBeta today. This is not an efficient way to build an application in SynBio, right? We can do better than this. We do understand that cash is king, right? Like we had to do this at Ginkgo because we were deathly afraid of running out of money as a startup company. And so we've structured our deals to conserve cash runway for startups. We can take equity in lieu of cash. And we also understand the milestones that are relevant to venture investors and follow-on investors. And so we can help you on both sides of this. We can help you maintain that cash runway, do work that will help you hit those milestones for investors, and then also introduce you to those investors that are interested in synthetic biology applications. We know many of them. They come to us asking about what the new stuff is that's out there. And so please do reach out if we can help you on either side of that coin and get you on the platform. The final point I'll make here is, again, just to try to make this clear for folks, you can think of Ginkgo's value kind of proposition to startups as similar to a place like Amazon Web Services, right? So Amazon invests very, very heavily, to the tune of, in their case, billions of dollars in capital equipment, right? So think like giant data centers. Then their customers get low marginal cost compute that they buy as a service, right? Well, Ginkgo's doing the exact same thing. We've been investing hundreds of millions of dollars in lab automation and scale. We have a 200,000 square foot facility in Boston. This is, our new facility, Bioworks 5. You can see the hardware is no longer coming from eBay. You as an application developer should not be spending your limited cash in a startup on expensive lab rent or expensive lab equipment. You should be spending it on getting your product to market, hitting key milestones that will help you raise that next round of money. You should not have to build your company like we did for those first six years. That's not the way to get things out to market more quickly. And so just wanted to highlight that. Okay. All right. So why is another reason the field is taking off right now? Well, products are going to market. Okay. And a lot, actually. So I went and pulled a bunch of headlines from the last few years. You can see Dimitrex and Evonik doing a supply agreement in cannabinoids, Solugen and industrial chemicals, Pivot working on nitrogen fixing microbes going out into the field. You can see up in the top left our cannabis partner Kronos. You can actually go buy these CBG gummies up in Canada now. These are for sale. That CBG is being made with in a fermentation with a Ginkgo engineered bug. On the right, you can see a collaboration between Bolt and Lululemon to do, in this case, a mushroom-based leather bag. Synlogic has gone to clinical trials with the first engineered microbiome products in their pipeline. Genomatica has done actually a lot of really cool work. Most recently announced that Cargill and Helm were spending $300 million to build a manufacturing facility to expand production of BDO using a Genomatica strain. And this is in this category of starting to make bio-based commodity chemicals. They also are working with Lululemon on bio-based nylon. Motif launching Himami, ingredient for animal-free meats. And then I mentioned, we're working with Aldevron on vaccinia capping enzyme. So Ginkgo's doing our part in this as well. We more than doubled the number of products going to scale production from our customers in the last year in diverse fields. But just as a reminder, at the end of the day, we're enabling your products to go to market, right? Ginkgo doesn't have our own product pipeline. We're really here to operate sort of as that sort of Amazon Web Services to help you get your product to market. So the more of these that come out, the better it is. And the thing I would say is we should be celebrating each other's successes here across the industry, right? It's obviously good for any given company to get a product to market, but as investors, as customers, and the public see more synthetic biology products come out the door, it drives volume back to all of us, both in investment and demand. And so this is something I think that we should all kind of hang our hat on collectively. Okay. All right. So the last one, and this is particularly near and dear to my heart, is platform technology. So, sort of the tools and equipment that support SynBio are getting better and better, which is making the process of developing and launching a synthetic biology app easier and easier every year. Okay, so like I said, so I first said, hey, we're going out in all these broad markets, and then, oh wow, these products are actually going to market. What's really cool about this is you can, again, if you're thinking about investing in the field, understanding the field, the rate of new products coming out is also going up, and that's because the core technologies that ultimately let you develop a synthetic biology app are getting better. Okay, and Ginkgo plays in this field, but we're not the only one, right? So amazing work from Twist, Inscripta, Berkeley Lights, Culture. These are all folks that are developing tools and technologies to help you make your applications go to market more quickly. We measure ourselves at Ginkgo on a metric we call strain tests. The basic idea here is you've got an engineered strain and you want to run some sort of characterization assay on it. And you can see here, we've been roughly tripling the amount of strain tests we do per day on an annual basis. So going from tens to hundreds back in 2015s to tens to hundreds of thousands per day today. And in some cases, over 1 million or 10 million per day, depending on if we're using some of our newer technologies. And alongside this, important to our investors, the cost per strain test is falling, right? So I'm doing 3 times as much work. I'm not just spending 3 times as much money. We've been about halving the cost per strain test annually over that same window of time. And we pass that back to our partners, right? So as our costs fall, what we want to do is make it less expensive for anyone in the industry that wants to sign up to develop an application. And so by getting on our platform, you're not just betting on where it is today, also it's where it could get in the future. And I just mentioned we raised $1.5 billion. I have no product pipeline. So I'm not investing that in clinical trials or go to market or applications testing. I'm just buying more robots and investing in new technology to keep driving these numbers so that you have access to them to develop your application. So if you don't like where we're at now, maybe you'll like where we are in a year. And if you get on the platform, that can be an easy transition. Okay. And so to that end, you should go to Patrick Boyle's talk later today at 2:30. Well, he will get way more in the technical weeds than me on our protein production CDKs. These are cell development kits. It's an idea we stole from software development kits, which is like what Apple gives you to develop an app for the iPhone in the area of protein production. And so we've developed in-house Pichia strains that have very high productivity and don't require methanol for induction. We have a fungal strain that we acquired from Dutch DNA. These assets are available to anyone that signs up on our platform, right? It's part of the deal. of engaging with Ginkgo, you get access to that code base, as we call it, sort of existing biological assets to make your life easier. And that can really speed up projects. We as an example, I mentioned this project with Aldevron. We got to a 10-fold improvement in the production of this enzyme for them in less than a year. And so, for the investors in the room, I get it. Interest rates go up. It makes it harder to invest in sort of longer timescale breakthrough technology, these sort of apps that might be making money way out in the future. My view is that what we're seeing now in synthetic biology is a compression of the time it takes for an app to go from conception to being on the market. And so I think it's good timing that we're sort of hitting that inflection in the industry, but it's really driven by these underlying platform technologies getting better. Okay. So, since I have COVID, I'd be remiss not to mention that this thing is no fun. And it's to me, it's an example of 30,000 base pairs of very malicious biological code. Okay. And, I bring this up because biosecurity, and what I mean by that is the technologies we use to limit the misuse of the technologies that the folks in this room are developing. So biosecurity is not new to sort of the field of synthetic biology. So here's a DARPA study from 2003, okay, so 20 years ago, led by Drew Endy and Pat Lincoln and Richard Murray, that included a review of biological risks and how current biosecurity at the time was sort of like a Maginot Line in France. It was built for the last war. And you had things like anthrax vaccine and smallpox vaccine that, as we know now, were not particularly useful for COVID, right? And what we need is actually more flexible technologies, more responsive technologies. And so the best example of that during COVID was the mRNA vaccines, getting a vaccine out the door in a year, being able to do it to any new sequence. Like this is the technology going forward, I think, for rapid response when it comes to vaccination. So that's super exciting. The other area that we saw a lot of activity was in what we would call like a weather map for like monitoring where is the virus. And so this is really widespread asymptomatic testing. Like, I figured out I had this because we test regularly, at Ginkgo. And you do this, we've been now handling millions of samples for K-12 schools at Ginkgo in more than 10 states. We have a partnership with the CDC at airports to sample and sequence people at the borders. This caught the first instance of BA2 and BA3 in the US. I think BA3 was 40 days before one or the other, 40 days before it showed up in any other public sequencing database. So I grew up down in Florida. If a hurricane was coming, we knew it was coming because we had satellites monitoring and you have the weather service. And so it allowed us to prepare. And by preparing, you limit damage and you get back to normal life sooner. So we need the same thing for waves of infectious disease. We should know when they're coming, be able to prepare and get back to normal life sooner. I'm confident we can build this in the US and worldwide. And then for the whole industry, since I have your attention for a minute, we're building the tools that make it easier and faster to program biology. We have a responsibility to care that those tools are used in a positive way. And we're going to work our butts off to get the world as excited about synthetic biology as we are. And this is going to be a key concern that people rightly have. How do you prevent misuse? So I'm confident that we can all do this, but we should remember that it is on us as the technology developers to invest in this type of thing. Okay. Last thing I want to mention, on Thursday, we're going to have the summit about our collective race against the clock to address climate change. I will say the tenor of this has changed dramatically in the last few years in terms of response to climate. Special credit to Tesla. It's a $1 trillion company that built from nothing that is fundamentally a bet that at the end of the day, the economy will be carbon neutral. And to do that, internal combustion engines will not exist in cars. Period. They have to go electric. And so it's not a question of will it, it's a question of when and which company will win, right? And investors note of this, because if you bet on that right with Tesla, you made, right? And so Bill Gates said he thought there'll be 8 to 10 Tesla scale companies built in response to climate. So $1 trillion companies, my guess, a couple of them are in this room. Okay, so the field is early and there are people that will try to slow us down, but you should be proud of the work you're doing. I like to show this image of sort of an imagined future with synthetic biology success. What people choose to spend their time and capital on builds the future. It really does. Collectively, we could build a future that looks something like this. And I'd really like that. And I love you all for spending your time and energy to make a future that looks something like this a reality. So I'm sorry again, I can't be there in person, but feel free to reach out to me directly, jason@ginkgobioworks.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to help with whatever weird thing you want to grow. So enjoy the meeting, and thanks again.